Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome back to another very cozy wrap up. This doesn't look very cozy because I'm just in a sweater, but I promise I'm in pajama pants. It is time for another cozy wrap up and I am so excited. I can definitely say that February was not my best month. However, when I tell you guys my numbers and everything like that, you'll probably be like, what? What do you mean? Sounds like you had a fantastic month. I did. I just got into a big slump towards the end, so I didn't read all the books that were on my TBR for the month of February, and I ended up becoming a really big mood reader towards the end, just because my slump was, it was helping me just to read books that I was in the mood to read and not books that I was forcing myself to read based off of my TBR. Don't get me wrong, I love my TBR, I love my bingo game, I love that it gives me a chance to read books that I wouldn't necessarily pick, and I love being able to push myself to read those books. So I know I get some comments here and there like, why do you force yourself to read these books if you don't really want to read them, blah, blah, blah. But I love it. I was just having a hard month. So I have some tea. I have my stats. Let's go ahead over and talk over stats, and then we'll go over each book and let's get this done. My tea's very hot. I just burned my mouth. But as you have all of my stats here, quite a good number of stats. Per usual, I think I included everything that I also included last month. So here we go. I read 15 books in the month of February, which is right on track for my usual reading. Of those 15 books, I read 12 mixed media books, 2 physical books, and 1 ebook. I read a total of 4,078 pages, which averages out to about 145 pages a day, which is actually very low compared to my usual stats month to month. And an average book size of about 271 pages, which is again quite low. As for my star ratings, I had 3 5 stars, 8 4 stars, 2 3 stars, and 2 books that I didn't end up rating because I DNF'd them. For my genres, I read 7 romances, 3 contemporaries, 2 fantasies, 1 graphic novel, 1 nonfiction, and 1 classic book. For the age breakdown, I read 11 adult books, 3 young adult books, and 1 children's book. For my representation, I read 7 books with mental health rep, 2 books with disability rep, and 6 books with no representation in the middle. As for my POC authors, I read 7 books by a POC author, which means that 8 of my books were written by non-POC authors. I read 5 books that have POC characters, which means that I have 10 books without POC characters. As for my LGBTQI plus representation, I had 2 books that I read where the main character was LGBTQI plus, 7 books where it was present in the story but the main character was not the person with that representation, and I read 6 books without any LGBTQI plus rep in it. Okay, as for the LGBTQIA plus breakdowns, I read 5 books with a character that was bisexual. I read 3 books where one or multiple of the characters were gay. I read 1 book with a non-binary character. I read 1 book with an asexual character as well as a character that was non-gender specific. And I read another book on its own that had a character that was not specific about their labels, but it did have some representation for LGBTQI+. I read 11 books written by a woman. I read 3 books written by a man, and I read 1 book written by multiple authors. This month, I read 7 books that were part of a series. I read 8 standalones. I finished a series and I DNF'd a series. All 15 books that I read this month were my first go around reading them. I had no rereads this month. I read 5 books that were published in 2020, 1 book that was published in 2019, 1 book that was published in 2016, 1 book that was published in 2014, 2 books that were published in 2013, 2 books that were published in 2012, 1 book that was published in 2011, 1 book that was published in 2002, and 1 book that was published in 1845. As for my color breakdown, I read 4 books that were blue, 1 book that was green, 3 books that were white, 5 books that were black, 1 book that was gray, and 1 book that was purple. That is all of my stats. That was a rough go around. Hopefully it will be cleanly edited for you guys because wow, was that a time and a half. I also will say I read 15 books in the month of February. However, I will be talking about 16 books because it just made a little bit more sense. When we get to the end of my stat, I will let you guys know. But let's go ahead and jump into the first book. The first book that I read this month was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. Honestly, it doesn't even feel like I read this book this month. It feels like this was the longest month of my life. I don't know about you guys, maybe it's just because I was in a bad mental state, but holy guacamole, I don't even remember reading this. I mean, I do. I ended up giving this book a 4 star. I don't think that it was my favorite book that I have read, but I do definitely see the big impact that it had, and I understand why it was having so much hype when the book was originally published. And it did win 2 awards last year in the Goodreads Choice Award. It won for Best Contemporary and Best Debut Novel. And I can definitely see why people loved it. This follows a girl, I already forgot her name. Let's see. Amira. Amira, who is a babysitter for a white couple, and one day she gets a call in the middle of a very interesting birthday party. They were just at a club, and she is dressed very provocatively, but the mom calls and asks the babysitter, Amira, to come over. They have an emergency, and they really need her to take her young daughter out of the house just to so they can deal with some issues that were going on at home. And so she takes the kid to a grocery store, and while they're there, a security guard stops them and accuses Amira of kidnapping the daughter that she is supposed to be babysitting. And it stems like a whole like downward spiral from there. You really just follow. I think I had a misconstrued idea of what this book was going to follow. I thought it was going to be more of an aftermath of what happened, and it does follow that, but a lot of it is also like the in-between of how the main character gets over what's going on, as well as how she deals with her life as a Black woman and the things that are expected from her. But there's also some like high school drama that gets pulled from her boss's past into the present. There's also an interesting relationship that's going on between Amira and another character, but her boss, which her name is Alix, ends up becoming very obsessed with Amira and her lifestyle, and basically becoming a very forced ally. And it really talks about systemic racism and microaggressions and forced allyship when it's not really coming from the person with the best intentions, but they're doing it to fit in or to seem cool, but not really actually caring about the things that they say and do that could potentially hurt the people that it is focused towards. And I thought the book was done really well. I think that it talked about some of those hard topics really, really well, and I really enjoyed it. I just think that I felt a disconnect from the characters at times because I was expecting a little bit something different from the book that I didn't necessarily get. So overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it a 4-star. It was a good book. I don't see myself rereading it though, but I definitely enjoyed it. Okay, this is another book that I feel like I read like forever ago, and that is Heart, So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the second book in the Curse of Dark and Lonely series, and I have to say I loved the first book, and I definitely feel the same like most people. I feel like a lot of people liked the second book less, and I definitely feel that, but not as much as most people I think are expressing their feelings. I really enjoyed this book. I just liked the first book slightly better. I liked the characters that they followed just a little bit better, but it's kind of hard to talk in detail about this book without spoiling the first one. The first book follows a girl named Harper who gets pulled into this very interesting and magical world where she is now forced to break the curse on a king in order to save herself and her people, or they're his people. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and the main character has cerebral palsy. This actually doesn't follow Harper or the main character in the first book. This follows a side character and his journey and discovery to what he knows is the truth. There's a lot of politics that comes into play in this book, and I really enjoyed it. I just think that maybe the story was a bit slow, and I didn't have the same love that I felt for the romantic relationship in this book that I did for the first one. So I still really enjoyed it. I think that I'll definitely reread the series, and I'm so super excited for the third book. I don't own it yet, but I will be buying it like ASAP, and I do want to read it. I just it wasn't my favorite book of the two, let's just say that. Okay, and then after that I got my nonfiction out of the way, and I read The Magnolia Story by Chip and Joanna Gaines, and I gave this book a 5-star. I loved this little short story memoir thing so much. This follows not really their life, it does follow their life growing up, but it's not in super that much detail. This mostly follows their story of how they became Chip and Joanna Gaines, the fixer-upper family, and their journey to like from the beginning of their small business up until they were on Fixer Upper and had their own TV show. And it was just so sweet and wholesome and cute. I cried multiple times. I listened to this in one sitting basically. I was driving to a birthday party and I was listening to this, and it was just so cute and so good. And the actual audiobook is narrated by both Chip and Joanna, and it just brought the story to life so much more. They're such a quirky, fun, just loving couple, and it was just so beautiful to see their story come together. It is a very religious aspect on their story because they are super religious, and I loved seeing that. I thought that it was very well done. It was super short, but they conveyed so much love and power into this book that just made it feel so absolutely heartwarming. And there was also some really good things in here about motivation and trusting in yourself and believing in your vision and knowing when it's time to let things go. And it was just a really, really awesome book, and I will definitely be rereading this. it was just so cute, and I definitely would read more from them in the future because I loved it. All right, then we have my first DNF for the month, and I didn't really plan on reading this, but I was trying to read a graphic novel via ebook, and I wanted to see how it went, and I don't think that the format is the reason why I DNF'd this book. I just didn't really like the storyline and the, I'll go into it, but what I'm talking about is Check Please Volume 1. I ended up DNFing it. I didn't give it a rating. I just didn't end up loving it. I read about 40-ish pages of this, and it wasn't for me. I really struggled with it, and I think that not only I liked the new adult, like, kind of college-y setting. I just didn't really care for the language. Every other word was the F-bomb, and don't get me wrong, I love to cuss. Like, I don't mind it, but it just felt very forced, and it didn't feel very authentic coming from the characters. And I just didn't have any attachment to the characters in this graphic novel at all. I will say that I liked the writing style, and I think that the main character was cute, and I liked his love for baking, but other than that, I didn't really have any attachment to the actual storyline and what these characters were doing, so I decided to put it aside. If you guys think that it's something that I definitely should continue with and I might enjoy it once I get to the end, please feel free to let me know, but this just wasn't the one for me at this point. Okay, up next, we're going to talk about a buddy read that I did in the month of February, and that is The Running Dream by Gwendolyn Van Dranen. I actually read this with my friend and subscriber Gabriel, and I gave this book a 4-star. I really enjoyed this. This follows a girl named Jessica who, you meet her right in the beginning of her story as she is just coming out of a huge accident, and unfortunately she has lost her leg. She is an amputee, I believe, below the knee, and the only problem with this, not that that is a problem in and of itself, but she was a runner, and she loved track, and she loved being able to run, and that was part of her personality. It was part of who she is, and she really had to cope with letting go of that part of her life, but still loving that dream so much and wanting to get back to it. So that's what the story follows. It's her picking back up her love and passion of running after such a huge and traumatic accident, and learning to be able to do this again. And a lot of the book follows her mindset and her mentality of going through losing a limb and her depressive state, and how much she struggled with what happened and how to move past that and find joy in her life again. You also just follow her trying to get a new running leg, but once she is able to do that, she realizes that she doesn't want to do it alone. So she meets a friend right after her accident. Her name is Rosa, and she has cerebral palsy, and they end up striking up a really awesome relationship, and she wants to do more for Rosie. I won't spoil anything more than that, but I definitely feel like it was a very heartwarming and beautiful story. I didn't really connect with the characters as much because I never went through this, and so I can definitely see outside looking in how beautiful it was done, but as a person that's never gone through this or doesn't have a disease like Rosa does in this story, it was a little bit harder to fully connect with the emotions and the feelings behind it. I can try to understand it, but I can't fully speak to it. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I didn't have that full connection that I would have wanted, but I know that some of the people that are reading this that have gone through this and are going through this will find this super uplifting and beautiful and super empowering, because it just gave you a lot of hope and strength, and I really enjoyed that from this book. Overall, really enjoyed it. I don't see myself rereading it, but I'm so glad that I read it, and it was such a wonderful experience. Alright, okay, so out of all the books that I read this month, this is probably the most disappointing that I read, and it's because I really thought that I was going to love it, and that is One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. This is supposed to be a fat positive bachelorette-styled romance, and it's not that I didn't love it, I just had some issues with it, so we'll talk about that. So the problem that I had with this book is it's pitched as this really awesome and super fat positive book, and that's not really what we got. We spent a lot of the book really focusing on the negativity aspect of Bee's body and what people thought of it and what she thought of herself, and she spent so much time, like putting on this front on her blog that she was a super positive, don't give a shit about what people think of me. I'm gonna, post about my body and talk about my body and let the world see my body the way that I want it to be seen type of person. But in real life, she didn't really advocate for that. She wasn't super... It just didn't feel authentic to the character that she was throughout the story based off who she was online. And she basically writes a blog about how she never sees any plus-size individuals on a dating show called The Main Squeeze. And so she gets cast as The Main Squeeze, and The book spends a lot of time talking about the public's portrayal of B as the main squeeze and the main character of this bachelorette style show, and it's a lot of fat shaming, and it's just very uncomfortable to read. And I understand that that is super relevant and super honest to how some fat people are treated in the world. Again, can't speak to this, but I have had family members in my life that have gone through these things, and I have seen it, but I haven't experienced it firsthand. But I just felt like if a book is supposed to be is advertising that it's supposed to be super fat positive, then you should spend more time being super fat positive and not spending so much time with the fat shaming and allowing B to go through the mindset of not really learning how to love herself all the way up until the very end of the book, when you pitch this as a book that is a girl that doesn't care about what people think and embraces and loves her body. The men were super disgusting, most of them, and so that was really frustrating to watch. I thought that you knew who she was going to end up with by middle of the book, and I was okay with that. I really loved the character that she ended up with, but the miscommunication and the constant back and forth was like getting whiplash when I was reading it. So I gave it a 3 stars because I did enjoy like the behind the scenes of the Bachelorette aspect of this, because I'm a huge Bachelorette and Bachelor fan, so that was really fun to see. And I really liked the main character in some portions, and I really liked some of the side characters in some portions, and that's the reason why I gave it a 3 star. But I definitely thought that it could have been executed a lot better, and unfortunately I don't think that I will be keeping this or rereading this. So there's that one. All right, the next couple books that I'm going to talk about really shows how much of a slump I was getting into, because I started picking up just random books just to see if I can actually get through them. The first book that I picked up was Nights in Rodanthe by Nicholas Sparks. I ended up giving this book a 3 star. I enjoyed it. It was a quick book. I read it in one sitting. It was very sweet. This follows a girl who is a woman who is reeling from a separation from her husband. Her name is Adrian, and her husband has left her for another younger woman. And so she ends up going to this little cottage to watch over it for a week or so while her friend who owns the cottage and inn is at a wedding. And she meets a man named Paul while she's there. He's the only person staying at the inn, and they strike up this really beautiful short romance, and it really just talks about the impact that one person can have in your life and how they really change who you are as an individual. This also talks about she's telling the story to her daughter because her daughter has gone through a tough time. Her husband has just passed away, and so it talks about death of a loved one, and she's trying to help her daughter cope through that. And so it was a beautiful story. I really liked it. It did make me cry towards the end, but it wasn't something that I feel like is the best story that I've ever read. It was cute and well done in the time of reading it, but it's not something that I see myself ever rereading. But overall, I really enjoyed it. So far, Nicholas Sparks books have been books that I have enjoyed and are easy to go back to when I need a good palate cleanser, so that's what this was. All right, and then I read my second 5-star of the month, and I'm so happy about it because it was our book club pick for the Simply We Read book club for the month of February, and it was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Now, let me just tell you, OMG, I loved this book so much. It was absolutely freaking gorgeous and heartwarming, and just overwhelmingly beautiful in so many aspects, and I can definitely see why it has been hyped so much over the last couple of months because it was absolutely fantastic. If there's any books that I tell you to read in this wrap-up, this is the one. It is so freaking good, and I feel like everybody that reads it will love it. So this book follows Linus Baker, who is somebody that works for the Department of Magical Youth. The department in charge of magical youth. He is 40 and he's living on his own. He lives a very solitary, lonely life, and when he gets told by extremely upper management that he needs to go to a orphanage on an island that is extremely classified to look into this orphanage and see if the magical children that live there are deemed safe and fit to continue to live here, and if they're a danger to people around them as well as to themselves. And so he goes on this journey to figure that out. And Linus is a very by the book stickler for the rules type of person, and this journey that he goes on with these kids who are so beautiful and fun and have so much energy and life and personality to them, it really starts to have him open up his mindset to the world around him and all the things that he could have been missing. There's also a romance between the what's it called? The master of the house. His name is Arthur Parnassus, and they have a really wonderful, cute romance that they spark up together, and it's just so wonderful. The main characters in this book are a freaking blast. They are so hilarious. They have so much personality. Each character was spent like a lot of time being developed, and you just learn to love each quirk that each one of those characters has, and you just can't help but fall in love with the story, and the love that you have for these children and these characters is just so wonderful. I cannot even express my overall feelings for the way that I love this book. I still feel like I'm at a loss of words, but it has been explained as a warm hug and something that's just so heartwarming, and like it feeds your soul. And it was just so wonderful. I love it so much. I gave it a 5-star. It will definitely end up in my favorites of the year list, as I'm sure it will for most people that didn't already read it last year. And it was just so freaking good. So I definitely recommend this if you're looking for a good, heartwarming book to read. It was so worth it. And I will say that the audiobook for that was absolutely fantastic. All right, up next, I DNF'd my last book of the month, and no one's surprised. I DNF'd Les Mis by Victor Hugo. I just knew I wasn't going to pick it up, so I let it go. I only read 28 pages of this. I didn't get very far, but there's no reason to push myself to read something I obviously didn't want to read. It has been sitting on my shelf since the beginning of January, and I only read 28 pages. Like, there's no going back. There's no going back to that, so I'm letting it go, and that's okay. I'm gonna be brave, and it's gonna be fine. But the next book that I read was another easy read that I didn't plan on necessarily picking up, but I did, and that was The Upside of Falling by Alex Light. This was originally a Wattpad book that got traditionally published, and this is a fake dating contemporary YA romance. This follows Brett and I always forget their names. Brett and Becca. I knew it was 2 B's, but I couldn't remember her name. Becca, and she is talking with her ex-best friend about relationships because her ex-best friend is super popular and is always in a relationship. And so when she gets put on the spot and asked about her relationship, she lies and says that she has a boyfriend. And instead of having to fess up to the lie, Brett, who is the quarterback of the football team, steps in and says that they have been dating, and this is her secret boyfriend. And so they start fake dating. Brett does it for his own reasons. He wants to show his father that he can be in a relationship in high school and live the life that his father never could in high school because he ended up getting married and dating young. So this was that their relationship coming together, and obviously fake dating turned into something way more, but I really enjoyed it. I will say that this has trigger warnings for cheating and abandonment of a parent, so if that stuff is triggering to you, I just want to give you a heads up about that. But I felt like the story was done really well. I liked the characters. I thought that they were super sweet. I liked the baking aspects that were in here. Becca's mother was a baker. She owns a bakery, and she chose to use that source of coping mechanisms after her husband left, and it's a big part of the story, so I really enjoyed that. I liked the characters. I thought they were sweet together, and I really liked how the ending, with a romance, you always have the big blow up, and I really liked how it was handled, and I just felt really cute about it. I think I ended up giving this a 4-star? A 3-star. So it was a middle of the road book, but I still really, really enjoyed it. So, oh no, I did give it a 4-star. I was right. It is a 4-star. So really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to read some more of this person's work because I liked it. All right, up next we have the only children's book that I read this month, and that is Soulway. This is by Lupita Nyong'o. I always say the last name wrong. I can never get it right. But this is the one of the characters in Black Panther, and this is her children's book about a little girl named Soulway who is she's really upset about the color of her skin. She doesn't know how to feel beautiful with such dark skin, especially when everyone in her family is a lot lighter than she is. And she goes on this journey in the middle of the night to find the beauty in light and darkness, and learning to love the color of her skin. And it was just so beautiful. Soulway is just a representation for Lupita. She said that she went through this as a young girl, really struggling with the color of her skin, and trying to do everything that she could to change the way that she looked because she wasn't comfortable in the way that she looked. So this is definitely something that I experienced growing up, definitely something that I have a hard time still with to this day. So it was so beautiful to see this in a children's book for little kids that are growing up with those same feelings. They have something to turn to and to find the beauty in. And it was just so amazing. I gave this a 5-star. It was just so cute and wholesome, and I loved every second of it. It's kind of hard to rate a children's book because they're so short, but because this hit such hit home for me, I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to reread it. I bought a copy for myself, and I also bought one for my siblings because why not? So really enjoyed that, and definitely recommend if you want to pick up a quick, easy children's book. It was beautiful. All right, the last 5 books that we're going to talk about, one of them I read in March. I finished it in March. I started it in February, but finished it in March, and they are all part of the same series. I was going through a phase. I was really struggling with reading, and I wanted some smutty romances. I picked up the first book and then swiftly binge read the rest of them. 5 books in a series. I read them all in a week and a half, and I loved every second of it. And that is the Crossfire series by Sylvia Day. These are very comparable to 50 Shades of Grey, but I will say that they are way better. It's less BDSM and more just like possessive romance. And if that is your kink, then, you know, do you, boo-boo. I really freaking enjoyed them. This is a book series that I can see myself rereading every time I'm down and need a pick-me-up. I love these characters. After spending 5 books with them, how could you not? Like, I was so sad. I had book hangover when I finished the 5th book, and I wanted to immediately pick up the series right after that. It was such a wonderful, smutty book series that just made you have all of the feels, and you were rooting for the characters the entire time. I will definitely say the first 2 books were a little bit frustrating because the characters spend most of the time having sex, and when they have a problem, they fix their problems with sex. And for those of you guys that are in a relationship and know, communication is super key and vital to the functioning relationship. And it was really frustrating to watch them like sabotage the relationship by not talking about the important things. But the beauty of it being a 5-book series is you really got to see them grow and change and learn how to make the correct decisions with their relationship and for each other that was going to best benefit them in the long run. And it was just so beautiful to watch their story come together. I will say that the 5th book kind of made me mad just a little bit because I felt like there was something that the author did in here that was a little bit unnecessary, but overall I still really enjoyed them. I will say that these books have a ton of trigger warnings, so I will go ahead and just list off a couple of them. We have rape, sexual assault in vivid detail, self-harm, substance abuse, murder, death of a family member, lots and lots of stuff. Like, just beware. It is definitely not for the faint of heart, especially when it comes to the things that are triggering in these books, so beware of that. But other than that, I love it. If you're looking for a good smutty series and you're not too shied away from the triggers, I would definitely recommend picking it up because it was a blast and a half, and I cannot wait to reread them. All right, these are all of the books. The stack is gonna fall. These are all of the books that I read in February. Oh, I have a cramp. They fell. I have to say that even though I was in a slump and I didn't have the reading month that I would have liked, I still enjoyed pretty much everything that I read, aside from my few DNFs and my one disappointing read. But other than that, it was a fun time all the way around. I'm so glad that I actually got into my slump and ended up reading a favorite series of mine. I didn't say that but I gave every book in the Crossfire series a 4-star. They weren't quite 5-star reads, but they are still a favorite series of mine for sure. And I'm just so glad that I read them. So, you know, sometimes we just have to get in a slump to find books that we absolutely love. So I love that for me, love that for you. Please let me know if you guys have read any of these books in the comments below. I would love to chat about your thoughts. But other than that, that is the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I didn't finish my tea, but I hope that you finished whatever you were drinking right along with me. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.